Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
Aaron is back. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, guys, we are probably minutes away from finding out the details of what happened in the proceedings at the courthouse with Scott Hochstetter. He was arraigned today. I can tell you this right from the start. I was informed that Scott's bail has been set at $75,000. That is what we know so far. Before we find out all the details of what happened, and whenever that occurs, I'll do another live stream. Whether whether we're minutes away or an hour away or 2 hours away, I'm going to do a separate live stream for those details. But what I wanted to share with you right now is some of the high quality expert advice and feedback we get from some of the people on this channel. In the video that I did this morning, you guys might remember I showed you this breakdown from The Evil Queen Has Spoken, who did an expert job breaking down how the bail was, the original bail was arrived at for the arrest warrant at $325,000. Well, it turns out that The Evil Queen Has Spoken is someone who is retired from the LA County District Attorney's Office just last year after working there for over 30 years. And she has shared in the comments section some expert opinions about what we can, some of her opinions and about what we can expect to have happen in all of this, and some of her thoughts about all of this. So I wanted to share that with you, as well as sharing with you some of the expert opinions of a person similarly situated out of Pennsylvania, who was a prosecutor and a public defender in Pennsylvania. So first, let's start with The Evil Queen Has Spoken. So we got both coasts. We got the California coast and we got the Pennsylvania coast. All right, so this might be hard for you guys to read. I'm just going to read it out loud. If I can toot my own horn, she says, I retired from the DA's office, LA County, last year after 30 plus years. Here are my thoughts. One, as to the assault charge, because guys, in case you're just tuning in, you don't know what we're talking about. Scott is facing one count of assault with force sufficient to bring about grave bodily injury. And then he's charged with 5 counts of vandalism, which have been enhanced to hate crimes. Some of you longtime viewers might be amused to hear that Nora just did a 2.5-hour live stream about this entire thing, still under the impression that Scott is being charged for putting up posters. Yes, folks. Yes, folks. Nor did a 2.5-hour stream about how horrific it is. We're not all coming to Scott's defense. And if Scott loses this case, it will have international implications. Scientology protesters around the world will be negatively impacted if Scott is found guilty of these charges, and we all must rally to his defense. No, Nora, Scott is not being charged for putting up posters. Okay, Scott's not being charged for putting up posters. Next time you do a 2.5-hour live stream about a subject, you might want to do a little bit of research. Okay, so yes, so one charge of assault with causing grave bodily injury or with sufficient force to cause grave bodily injury, and 5 counts of vandalism, which I covered 4 of those counts in videos this morning because I still don't have a video of the 5th count. All right, anyway, so back to this. So The Evil Queen Has Spoken says, as to the assault charge, the question is whether Scott had the right to defend Cam and whether he used reasonable force under the circumstances. At the time Scott put Motley in a chokehold. Okay, remember, guys, we're calling the guy Motley Crue. There's Scott, and then we're calling the other guy Motley Crue. The guy that Scott put in a chokehold, we're calling Motley Crue. And I am going to show you a few angles of that video so you guys have further context. But I want to finish reading this to you first. Okay. The question is whether Scott had the right to defend Cam and whether he used reasonable force under the circumstances. At the time Scott put Motley in a chokehold, it appeared that Motley and Cam were engaged in mutual combat. Motley had already swatted Cam's phone. Would a reasonable person think that Cam needed to be defended? Was placing him in a chokehold, bringing him to the ground, and holding him there for an extended period of time a reasonable response? The same analysis would apply to the bike incident. For those not already familiar, there's the incident with Motley Crue, which is what Scott is actually charged for. And there's a separate incident that occurred where Scott pushed a biker to the ground, and the circumstances of that did not involve any sort of mutual combat. Okay, so she says the same analysis would apply to the bike incident, but I do not think pushing the bicyclist has the requisite force needed for a PC 245A4, which was the assault with sufficient force to cause grave bodily injury. Putting someone in a chokehold most definitely does have the requisite force. Scott may claim that he did not exert force on Motley, but Motley may be saying something different. If you restrict someone's airway, it elevates the criminal behavior. So that's interesting because when the evil queen has spoken, poses the question of would a reasonable person think that Cam needed to be defended? I think a reasonable person would conclude that Cam needed to be defended. And I also think it's reasonable to believe that Motley Crue is cooperating with the prosecution and is prepared to say that, you know, he was harmed in this way or that way, but that remains to be seen. Okay. Point 2, as to the vandalism charges, with Scott's obnoxious behavior, I don't think he will be a sympathetic defendant, even though the victim is Scientology and is also not sympathetic. That's right. I forgot that for the vandalism charges, the victim is not Motley Crue. The victim is Scientology. I lost my spot. Okay, that's right. Scott is not sympathetic. Scott will not be found sympathetic probably, and even though the victim, Scientology, is also not sympathetic. Scott is overly offensive, combative, rude, and utterly unlikable, clearly trying to emulate Streets, but failing miserably. As to the hate crime issue, that's right, because remember, guys, all the vandalism charges have been escalated to hate crimes because they occurred on church property or to church property. As to the hate crime issue, without vandalism, all of his obnoxious statements towards Scientology and or Scientologists would be protected speech. It becomes a hate crime if it was accompanied by vandalism, and the vandalism was motivated by religious prejudice. I see Scott clearly attempting to intimidate and deter Scientology and Scientologists by disrupting their event and facilities. By his own words, it is based on their religious beliefs. Anti-Scientology rhetoric are the only words coming out of his mouth the entire time. Whether Scientology is a religion is a whole other can of worms that I do not think the DA's office would undertake on this case. I think what Scott is doing and saying is enough to show the requisite intent. The real question is whether there was vandalism. That's very bad news, because it's very clear from the videos that there was vandalism. The destruction of the planters, the way they were 5 of them in a row, destroyed in multiple ways. The way he pulled a wreath off of one of their trees and it broke. Like, these are not accidents. He didn't like stumble and trip and oopsie. So the vandalism is the key here. Okay, let's see. Let me try to get my face out of the way here. Nope, that doesn't do it. Okay, we'll stick it right here. Okay, that being said, vandalism requires damage, destruction, or defacing of property. Throwing barriers, we're talking about those traffic barriers, those fold-up traffic barriers. Throwing barriers, unless they were damaged, is not vandalism. And yes, the barriers would have to be owned by Scientology, or else the rental company would be the victim. Taking the sign is theft, not vandalism. Oh, that's a very good point. Unless it was returned damaged or defaced. And plus, I mean, the sign that he ripped down was probably worth $5. It was like a cardboard. It was one of these foam board signs. You know what I mean? Okay. Finally, the wreath, the Christmas wreath, and the planters appear to be a no-brainer. We won't know what, if any, monetary damage has been alleged until the police reports are publicized or the parties make a statement. Point 3. If I handled the case, I would be open to a defense argument that all of these charges should be pled down to misdemeanors. They are not the crimes of the century. I might also plead him to at least one felony and agree to reduce it to a misdemeanor if he successfully completes some Caltrans or community service, paid any restitution, along with a stay-away order from Scientology buildings in Los Angeles. Scott comes across as a pointless, ignorant bully. I get why charges were filed, even if they have been over-filed. Just my 2 cents. That is some fantastic expert opinion, and thank you so much for it. The next feedback comes from Carrie, and she is a former prosecutor from Pennsylvania, and we will leave it at that, but also has been a defense attorney as well. Okay, so and because I don't, her thing came in an email and I don't have it screenshot, so I'm just gonna read it out loud. Okay, Carrie says, I saw your video about this with Streets, and everything Streets said is correct. But in case you want a former prosecutor, defense attorney perspective, I thought I would offer you my 2 cents. I would expect Scott's bail to be lowered, as the amount seems extremely high. However, it could be still set at a high number, like what Streets said. $150,000 for a felony with someone who has no ties to the community may be right. Streets is also correct that a bail bondsman may increase his fee and or place additional conditions on any bail posted for Scott. Some jurisdictions run their own bail supervision program. One of the counties I worked had such a program. It's basically probation while someone is on bail. Someone could be required to physically appear during their bail period. There could be any number of conditions that would be tied to the offenses charged, like no contact and stay away orders, no travel, no drug use, etc. I do not know if LA has such a program, but Streets may know. She goes on. Let's say that Scott cannot make bail. Scott would sit in jail through the procedural process until the case is resolved. When I was a prosecutor, many defense attorneys did not want their clients to make bail. Once the defendants are on bail, if there's jail time associated with a sentence, they are extremely reluctant to go back, as one can imagine. It is much easier to sell a client on taking a guilty plea, on agreeing to plead guilty, if it means they know they're getting out. DOA will be accruing time served towards a sentence if he has to stay in jail by not being able to post bail. She carries on. I would further expect many questions to arise regarding the felony assault charge, such as, will the victim show up for the hearings? So we're talking about Motley Crue here. Will the victim show up for the hearings? If not, that charge may get dismissed at a probable cause hearing, which is also called a preliminary hearing. It's the first court appearance that actually deals with the merits of the case. It's a judicial test of the evidence to see if there is probable cause to believe a crime has been committed and probable cause to believe the defendant committed the crime. If the victim doesn't show up for that hearing, the charge could get dismissed. I wonder if Scientology has the victim's info. They definitely do, and will do everything they can to make sure that he's there, and they definitely will. Remember, that guy was a regular of the La Poubelle bar. And the owner of La Poubelle is Francoise Coster, one of Danny Masterson's closest friends, and a very good friend to a great number of Scientologists. In fact, she used to date Scientology actor Eric Balfour, believe it or not. They probably have 30 years between them, but no judging. Francoise Coster is essentially somewhat of a Scientology agent, even though she's not a Scientologist herself. So she definitely has his info. She definitely put Motley Crue in touch with Scientology, and they are definitely working together, in my humble opinion. Okay, she carries on. The other question is whether the final grading of that offense remains a felony for purposes of a plea agreement. If I was defending Scott, I would expect that the felony be downgraded to a misdemeanor in exchange for the plea. That's fairly standard, especially if the victim did not suffer serious bodily injury. Now, maybe there's a medical report documenting serious bodily injury, but based on the footage you showed last night, it looks like no SBI occurred. And I would agree, it definitely does look like no SBI occurred. If the victim is on board for the prosecution, though, he may object to a plea agreement lowering the assault charge. Many states have victims' rights acts that allow a crime victim to offer his opinion on the proposed plea agreement. When I was a prosecutor, one of the worst things I could do was to lower a charge without the victim's consent. So while there are reasons to think the charge may ultimately be lowered, it is not a guarantee. As far as defending the charge of disturbing Scientology's religious service. Okay, no, at this point in the email, she actually switches from giving feedback about the assault and the vandalism to, let's not forget, the 16 misdemeanor charges Scott is facing and has not currently been booked for or arraigned on. 16 separate charges on separate dates for disturbing Scientology services with a bullhorn or whatever. So, okay. So she goes, as far as defending Scott against the charge of disturbing Scientology's religious service, there is a lot that a defense attorney could do with that charge as it relates to Scientology. That being said, the first thing a defense attorney wants to do is to get a decent plea offer that will mean time served on any jail sentence. If Scott refuses, there are definitely things I would do on those charges if I was defending against them. And while I agree that Scott needs to go away from the community, I kind of hate the idea that a precedent could be set that anyone protesting outside Big Blue could end up with those charges. And then we spoke about this briefly, and it was clarified. She actually misunderstood that Scott was not arrested and charged for protesting, which even Scott's bullhorning activity is still protesting. This other vandalism really has nothing to do with protesting. So I did ask her for any of her thoughts on the vandalism charges, and let me bring that up. Again, I'm just going to read from this because these are just text messages. Okay, she says, regarding the vandalism charges, if the charged incidents are what you showed today in the videos, then I agree. Taking apart those planters is definitely vandalism. Stealing the sign and throwing the traffic barriers, however, not so much. Remember, it's not illegal to be an asshole, but being an asshole will vacate any grace a prosecutor may have to give. Stacking the charges against Scott the way that they have shows me that any exercise of discretion has already been decided against Scott's favor. Regarding the attack on Motley Crue, defense of others can be a defense to the charges, but that doesn't mean the cops don't charge you at all. It's something you have to prove at trial. Back to the vandalism. Even if the items that Scott is vandalizing are on a public easement, the law does not allow for someone to destroy property of another just because the property has been improperly placed on adjacent public property. That is vigilantism. Law has a method of removing, and a person cannot take the law into their own hands just because the city is not moving fast enough to remove the property. Putting something on public property does not equal abandonment of the property. Here, Scientology was clearly exercising continued power over the planters, and therefore, in my opinion, have demonstrated that they did not abandon the property. That is pretty fantastic feedback, and I thank you for it so much, Carrie. Let's see. I did want to show you guys who haven't already seen the video yesterday. 3 different, and I've got the sound turned off on this because it's quite rambunctious, and a lot of bad, mean words are being said in these videos. We got 3 different angles of this. Okay, now this is my favorite angle. This is from Confident Chris, and let me share the right tab. Okay, how about I show it this way? Nope. How about I show it this way? Let's go that way. Motley Crue is the guy that you can see who looks like a punk rocker. To the right, we see Cam holding his phone. Now, I believe the reason we started calling this guy Motley Crue is because Cam called him Motley Crue. And I think that's what pissed him off and made him slap Cam's phone. Again, we're not turning on the sound, but I'm almost positive that is what happened. Okay, so he calls him Motley Crue, and he goes, "Whoopah! Get that out of my face." Okay, and then they start struggling, and then, of course, phones hit the ground, and then you don't see it on this angle, but Scott jumps in and grabs Motley Crue by the neck, and there you see, yeah. Okay, good. So that was the best view of the first part of it, but then everything gets a little murky. Okay, that was Confident Chris's angle. Now let's go to Chris without a Hellcats angle. He had a pretty good angle as well. So he's standing directly behind Cam. Now here's what's funny about this angle. So do you see, like, 1 inch to the left of Cam's ear, you see a head here with a hat. That is Scott. Now, how come I can't? There you go. A head with a hat right there. Now, next to Scott, that's Nerd Report. Okay. So the head with the hat closest to the signpost, that's Nerd Report. But to the right of Nerd Report, he looks like he's wearing a teddy bear hat, is Scott. Okay. He's all the way over there. Okay. Keep that in mind. Okay. So Motley goes whack. Okay. Motley goes whack. And then they start struggling. Cam's got a throat. Motley's got something. Look, where does Scott come from? Look. Right. Look, Scott. So he's holding his camera on a stick. You see him fall backwards, but he holds his camera he holds his camera stick up. So it's funny because when you watch this from Scott's perspective, his video, I'm going to show you his angle next. His camera never falls to the ground because he keeps holding his stick up. And what's even funnier is that you can't see it from this angle. Look. Okay. Do you see that leopard print jacket? That is not Scott. That is a woman. Okay. So you have a woman to the right of Cam with a leopard print, And then you've got Scott all the way on the other side with a leopard print. And that's why the first time I watched all these through, things got very confusing because you're like, Scott seemed to be in two places at one time. So, and then anyway, you guys will see. So woman to the right with leopard print. Okay, here comes one leopard running towards another leopard. And then that leopard has Motley Crue by the throat in his left arm. And he's got his camera, his camera pole in his right hand. And then they just kind of stay there for a little bit. See? Yeah, okay. See? You can see Scott's left arm around Motley Crue's neck. And there he gets up. Okay, that wasn't as long as I thought it was, to be honest. So Motley Crue's already on his feet, and they're going to be jawing at each other. And see, there's no grave bodily injury there. Oh, that was a different woman. Okay. Is that a different woman? No, that's this. Oh, my God. Look at all that metal. Look at all that hardware. Wow, it's Motley Crue and Motley Cruette. Oh, there, it's the meeting of the leopards. See, the meeting of the leopards. The two leopards are right next to each other. I wish we had a good a shot of that. Yeah. All right, well, there you go. Oh, there's Streets. There's Danny. Motley walks away. Everything's good. There's Cam. Cam's good. Everyone hugs, kisses, makes up, and goes on their merry way. Okay, last angle. We'll just actually watch Scott's angle. And let's see. So there's Motley. Cam's on the other side. Whack! Scott's like, running. He's like, someone needs help. Running. Oh, look, and you can see the other leopard print girl right there. Okay, so maybe this was like, see, normally the same poles of a magnet would repel each other. But in this case, these two leopard prints basically just like attracted each other like the strong force in the nucleus of an atom. And let's see. Whack! Running, grab neck, fall down, but his camera literally stays upright. Okay. Oh, look, yeah, there's Hellcat. There's Danny. I don't know who the guy in the red jumper is. There's the security guard. Okay. And then what happens? See, yeah, there you can see the woman. Yeah, okay. Leopard print woman. Okay, there you go. Those are all the angles. I got to tell you, this whole thing lasted about, 15 seconds at the most. No grave bodily injury from what I can see. I don't know. It's a weird one, you guys, but it seems like we are going to, within 30 minutes to 60 minutes, I'm sure we'll have some actual updates from the people who are inside the courthouse. We'll see what kind of arguments did the prosecution make? How strongly did the prosecution argue to either keep the bail the same or increase the bail? How good was the defense? I think Scott had a public defender. I can't wait to hear what the arguments were on both sides. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. Talk to you soon, guys. Oh, wait. We got some starred comments here. Matthew the King. He is fucked. District attorney already saw the video proof. Old Frizz. He'll easily get $7 from his minion cult. Tina, the last 20. Assault is unwanted bodily contact. Battery is inflicting bodily injury. I know, and I know these words get misused, but the thing is, that's what the arrest warrant said. It's literally what the arrest warrant said. It's like, for example, assault with a deadly weapon isn't making unwanted contact with a deadly weapon. It's bodily injury. But anyway, I shouldn't speak with such confidence. I am not a lawyer, folks. I just play one on YouTube sometimes. But anyway, all I'm saying is that the arrest warrant said what it said, and it said assault, not battery. Okay. Sarasota Jerry. Good to see you, Jerry. Legal question. Does Scott have a legal right to refuse to use the jail toilet and insist that they provide him a bucket instead? That is such a good question, Jerry. That is a good question. I mean, maybe if they feed him his lunch in a shit bucket, he can eat the lunch and then shit in the bucket. And then It just feels right. Thank you for the question, Jerry. Scott, I would imagine no restriction of blood or air to Motley Crue would have occurred if he just got up afterwards like he did. Yeah, I agree with you. Kimberly, Scientology probably paid Motley Crue to file charges. Now, remember, only the police, only a prosecutor. Wait, hold on. See, I don't want to say this with such conviction. Motley Crue can file a police report. The district attorney or the city attorney, or in this case, we're talking about felonies. The district attorney is the one who decides whether to file charges. Yes. And if I've got that wrong or I'm missing a piece of the puzzle, please feel free someone to comment, as long as you know what you're talking about, in the live chat, folks. Okay, Scientology audit streets, LA. Good to see you. This may all be just to get a restraining order and a stay away order. Well, that is what I actually think is the explanation to all this. All they want is this little thing here, okay? And so they're making a big case here so that they can plead it down to a little thing here. That's what I think Scientology, because I do believe Scientology is the one, pulling the strings of the district attorney, although I don't exactly know how that works. I don't know exactly how that works. Like, how could Scientology literally be pulling the strings or calling the shots? It requires no stretch of my imagination to understand how Scientology could be involved in some sort of an advisory role. But I've got a really hard time truly believing that Scientology is like helping make decisions for the district attorney. So I was about to say, I'm sure Scientology would be happy to put all this to rest just for, an agreement to stay away and not protest. But what am I talking about here? Okay, so I was just when I said what I just said, I was fixated on Motley Crue. I forgot for a moment that 5 out of the 6 things that Scott is charged with, Scientology is actually the victim. So yes, the district attorney would be consulting Scientology on what they are willing or not willing to do or accept when it comes to pleading down. And I truly believe that as long as Scott agrees to stop protesting anywhere in California, although I personally believe they will ask him to agree not to protest at any Scientology locations anywhere, although I don't know if a California district attorney has the jurisdiction to even ask or require, if that's even constitutional, for a state district attorney to restrict someone's activity in other states. That may not even be possible. But essentially what I'm saying is I totally agree with Streets. I think that is the goal, and I think they would be willing to settle for that plea. I Eat Candy says, it almost makes you wonder if a backdoor deal with Scientology and Francois Coster, it almost makes you wonder if a backdoor deal with Scientology and Francois Coster for arranging testimony from said alleged victim to go forward for them paying for her fees from Streets. Oh, I see what you're saying. So if Francois helped Scientology line up Motley Crue to cooperate with the prosecutors, then maybe that was a quid pro quo. Scientology steps in and pays Francois's legal fees, or the money that she owes Streets and Streets' lawyer for the legal fees. Hey, don't rule it out. That sounds like a pretty damn good theory. Cheryl says Emo Bro is also good. Yes, Motley Crue, Emo Bro, and Malta McMurchie. Why did they take so long to file the charges? I think they were giving Scott a year's worth of rope to accumulate as many offenses as possible and to establish a pattern of conduct and behavior, because they have a certain amount of time that a window within which they can charge. And they're like, well, why not wait until he does all these things and we'll charge him at the same time and trump everything up and make it more serious. I think that's what happened there. I don't know what that means. Oh, I know what you mean. Okay, good. Well, I mean, by the time that I went live, he had not given an update. He gave an update earlier in the day, but Scott had not been arraigned by the time that earlier update was done. Lori Plays says, not in Florida. Here, assault is no contact, merely threat of a battery. Well, there you go. All right, guys, that's what we have for now. Stay tuned. As soon as we know more about what actually happened, I'll bring that info to you as well. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.